It's just the sun was high in the sky, filtering through the stained glass windows of the church, bathing everyone in a kaleidoscope of colors. As the church doors opened, I felt the weight of expectation on my shoulders. My heart pounded against my chest, a medley of emotions swirling within. Excitement, nervousness, joy. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, feeling the rustling layers of my white gown against my legs. The scent of fresh lilies and roses from my bouquet filled the air, momentarily pushing away the underlying tension I'd felt since morning. Guests turned in their seats to catch a glimpse of me, but I kept my eyes focused on the altar where Jack stood. He looked dashing in his tailored suit, but there was a distance in his eyes. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just wedding jitters. As I walked, I overheard murmurs from the crowd. From the corner of my eye, I saw Jack's mother, a sharp-eyed, silver-haired woman, whispering to her sister. They looked me up and down, their faces twisted in what seemed like contempt. "Why did Jack even pick her?" the aunt whispered, just loud enough for me to catch. She must trapped him somehow. "Maybe she's pregnant," replied Jack's mother with a sneer. My face flushed with anger and embarrassment. However, I held my composure, hoping Jack would notice and say something. He didn't. When I finally reached the altar, I expected a comforting smile or an assuring touch from Jack. Instead, he simply whispered, "You look nice," his voice cold and emotionless. As the ceremony progressed, I felt a growing unease. It seemed Jack's family was barely hiding their disapproval. His father kept glaring at me from behind his thick glasses, and his sister kept rolling her eyes whenever I recited my vows. After exchanging rings, when we were pronounced husband and wife, I mustered up all the courage to seal the union with a kiss. But even that felt forced. The reception was no better. My new in-laws took every chance to belittle me. As we danced our first dance, Jack's best man joked loudly, "Hope she doesn't step on his feet with how clumsy she is at everything else." Jack just chuckled, making me wonder if this was all some terrible mistake. Throughout the night, the comments kept coming, each more hurtful than the last. "Did you see her dress? Must have cost a fortune. Wonder who paid for it," said one cousin. "Probably charged it to the company account," added another, referring to my well-paying job. Jack seemed oblivious to it all. Whenever I tried to share my discomfort, he dismissed it, saying I was overthinking or being too sensitive. By the end of the night, what should have been the happiest day of my life felt like a nightmare. My wedding, instead of being a celebration of love, had become a stage for my in-laws' prejudice and my husband's indifference. After the whirlwind of the wedding, I thought things would settle down and we could start our new life together. But that hope quickly crumbled when Jack nonchalantly dropped the bombshell during breakfast. "Sophia," he began, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly, "I've been thinking. We should move in with my parents for a while. Save up some money, you know." I nearly choked on my toast. "What? Why?" "I thought we were getting our own place." Jack looked up, his expression hard to read. "It makes financial sense. We can save up faster." I took a moment, trying to digest this unexpected change. But Jack, after, how they behaved at the wedding, he cut me off. "Oh, come on, Sophia. They're just traditional. Give them time." With a heavy heart, I agreed, convincing myself that perhaps this would be an opportunity to mend bridges. How wrong I was. The sprawling mansion of the Collins family, which once stood as a symbol of grandeur and old money, now loomed over me like an unwelcoming fortress. The moment we stepped in, it was clear that I was the outsider. Jack's mother greeted us, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, her lips curling into a thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome home, Jack," she said warmly, hugging her son tightly. When she turned to me, her voice was noticeably cooler, "Sophia, do make yourself at home. We've prepared the guest room for you." I raised an eyebrow. "Guest room?" Jack chimed in. "Mom, we're married. We'll share a room." She just waved her hand dismissively. "It's just until we get things arranged, dear." The next few weeks were a blur of thinly veiled insults and endless chores. I was constantly reminded that I was a guest in their home. While Jack's parents lounged in the living room or went out for social gatherings, I was left to handle household chores, from cooking to cleaning, and even gardening. One evening, as I was scrubbing the kitchen floor, Jack's sister, Lisa, sauntered in, a smirk playing on her lips. Ms. High-Flying Accountant reduced to cleaning floors. How the mighty have fallen. I clenched my teeth, trying to control my anger. "It's called being helpful, Lisa. You should try it sometime." She laughed mockingly. "Why would I, when we have you?" Jack's indifference became more evident with each passing day. Whenever I sought comfort or support, he would dismiss it, often siding with his family. It felt like I was trapped in a house with no allies, constantly walking on eggshells. But there was one silver lining amidst all this. Jack's grandfather. The old man, though stern in appearance, was kind-hearted and observant. He would often beckon me to his room, offering solace and understanding when no one else would. "Sophia," he said one day, his voice soft and comforting, "this house may be grand, but it's filled with small-minded people. Remember, you're worth more than their petty comments." Little did I know, his support would become the beacon of hope in the storm that was yet to come. The mansion's hallways echoed with whispers and laughter, but there was one room, at the end of a long corridor, where the noise never reached. It was where Jack's grandfather, Mr. Henry Collins, resided. As days turned to weeks, I found myself frequently visiting that part of the mansion. Henry was unlike the rest of the Collins clan. He was a man of few words, but each was carefully chosen and filled with wisdom. One evening, I knocked lightly on his door, holding a tray with his dinner. "Come in, dear," he called out, recognizing the pattern of my knock. I entered, placing the tray on a table beside his large reading chair. The room was filled with the smell of old books, leather, and a hint of Henry's favorite tobacco. Bookshelves lined the walls, holding a vast collection, from literature classic to memoirs of old wars. As I made my way to leave, he gestured for me to sit. "You look troubled, Sophia," he began, his blue eyes piercing mine. I sighed, taking a seat opposite him. "It's just this house, your family. It's overwhelming. I thought marrying Jack would mean gaining a new family, but it feels like I've walked into a den of vipers." Henry chuckled softly. "The Collins can be a tough bunch. Yes, but not all of us are cut from the same cloth." He took a deep drag from his pipe and continued. "You see, Sophia, this family has always been about appearances, about prestige. But somewhere along the line they forgot about values, about respect and love." I looked down, tears threatening to spill. But why do they despise me so much? What have I done? Henry reached out, gently patting my hand. "It's not about you, it's about them. You're a reminder of the world outside this mansion, a world where status isn't just handed over because of a family name. You've earned your respect, and they don't know how to handle that." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I just wish Jack would stand up for me." Henry's expression turned somber. "Jack has always been under the influence of his mother. She's a strong-willed woman, and Jack, well, he's always sought her approval." We sat in silence for a moment, the only sound being the soft ticking of the grandfather clock. "Sophia," Henry finally said, "I see a fire in you, a spirit that refuses to be crushed. Hold on to that. Don't let them take it away. And remember, you always have an ally in me." Our conversations became a regular occurrence. Henry shared stories of his youth, of wars he'd fought both on battlegrounds and within family walls. He became my confidant, my mentor, and above all, my friend In a house filled with hostility, I had found an unexpected ally in an old man who had seen the world for what it was and chose kindness over bitterness. It was a bond that would soon become the catalyst for change in the tumultuous saga of the Collins household. One evening, as I settled into my room to read, I overheard muffled voices from the hallway. The tones were hushed but urgent. Curiosity piqued. I silently approached my door and strained to listen. "It's a lot of money, but it's worth it," I heard Jack's father murmur. "With Sophia's credit rating and her position at the company, we'll get approved easily." Jack's mother's voice dripped with sly amusement. "She won't even realize until it's too late." My heart raced. What were they talking about? And why were they involving my credit rating? The next morning, I waited for Jack to leave for work before I began my investigation. Logging onto my online banking, I scoured through my credit history. My heart plummeted when I saw a recent loan approval for a staggering $1,200,000. It hit me like a ton of bricks. The Collins family had used my identity to take out a massive loan. I felt a dizzying mix of anger, disbelief, and betrayal. Later that day, I found myself knocking on Henry's door. Needing to share my discovery with someone I could trust, Henry listened patiently as I poured out my frustrations, his face growing graver with each word. When I finished, he looked deep into my eyes. "Sophia, this isn't just about money. This is a violation of your trust, your identity." "I know," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "But what can I do?" "They're a united front. Jack won't believe me." Henry's gaze hardened. "You need evidence. Confronting them without it will only give them a chance to cover their tracks." Determined, I began to gather evidence over the next few days. Bank statements, online records, even voice recordings of whispered conversations I managed to catch. The weight of the deceit was crushing, but with each piece of evidence, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. One evening, as I sat in the dim light of my room, poring over the documents, Jack walked in. His face was unreadable. "Sophia, my parents told me about the loan. They said it's for a family vacation. A big one. They assured me they'd pay it back." I looked up, my eyes blazing. "Did you know? Were you a part of this?" Jack hesitated, then sighed. "I didn't know at first. But when I found out, they told me it was for the good of the family, that we'd benefit from it." I felt a cold rage building inside me. "So instead of defending your wife, you joined them in their scheme?" He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "Sophia, save it," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "You've made your choice. Now it's time for me to make mine." The truth was out, and lines had been drawn. I was no longer just an outsider in the Collins mansion. I was their adversary, and the battle for justice had just begun. The days following the revelation of the loan were icy and tense. Conversations in the mansion were limited, with most interactions carrying undertones of bitterness and resentment. But just as I was steeling myself for a confrontation, the Collins family dropped another bombshell. "We're going on a vacation," announced Jack's mother, her voice dripping with smugness as the family gathered for dinner. The lavish dining table, usually a setting for veiled insults, now became a stage for their next manipulation. I tried to feign happiness, imagining that perhaps they intended to use the illicit loan money for a grand overseas adventure. "That's wonderful," I said cautiously. "Where are we going?" Jack's sister, Lisa, exchanged a smirk with her mother before replying, "Oh, Sophia, didn't you hear? You're not coming. Someone has to stay back and look after grandfather." I felt a rush of heat to my face. Why am I only hearing about this now? Jack, ever the mediator, attempted to soothe the situation. "Sophia, it's just for a couple of weeks. And with everything going on, I thought it would be a good break for both of us." "Both of us," I retorted, disbelief evident in my voice. "Seems like a break for everyone but me. Jack's father chimed in, his voice stern. "This vacation is a family decision. You're part of this family now, Sophia. You need to play your role." The room grew silent, the only sound being the clinking of silverware on porcelain. The message was clear. I was to be left behind, abandoned to the vast mansion with only an elderly man for company, while the rest enjoyed a lavish holiday. That night, as I lay in bed, a storm of emotions raged within me. The isolation, the betrayal, the blatant disrespect. It was all too much to bear. Tears streamed down my face as I grappled with the reality of my situation. A knock at the door broke my reverie. I wiped away my tears and opened it to find Henry leaning on his walking stick, a look of concern on his weathered face. "I heard," he began, his voice gentle. "It's unfair, Sophia." I nodded, struggling to find words. "Why are they doing this to me, Henry? What did I ever do to deserve this?" Henry sighed deeply. "It's not about what you did. It's about who they are. They've always been this way even before you came into the picture." We stood in the dimly lit corridor, two souls bound by the machinations of a family that seemed to thrive on cruelty. "Sophia," Henry whispered, his voice filled with a quiet resolve. "There's something I need to tell you. Something that might change everything." In that moment, as the mansion's walls seemed to close in on me, a glimmer of hope appeared. Abandoned by those I thought loved me, I found solace in the most unexpected of allies. In the stillness of the night, the large drawing room of the Collins mansion became the setting for a conversation that would change the course of Sophia's life. Henry's wheelchair was positioned facing the grand fireplace, the flickering flames casting long shadows on the ornate walls. "You must think this is all a bad dream," began Henry, his voice heavy with emotion. "But sometimes, Sophia, life presents us with opportunities in the most unexpected moments." I looked at him, my eyes filled with questions. "What do you mean, Henry?" Henry gestured to the room around them. "This mansion, the vast estates, the assets, they all belong to me. And I've watched for years as my family squandered its legacy, replacing values with vanity." I swallowed hard, trying to comprehend what he was alluding to. "But what does this have to do with me?" Henry leaned forward, his blue eyes piercing into mine. "I'm offering you a way out, a way to turn the tables on the Collins." I blinked in surprise. "How?" Henry's fingers played with a small envelope on his lap. "This," he whispered, handing it over, "is the deed to this mansion and the surrounding properties. I want you to have it." I stared at the envelope, my heart pounding. "But why me?" Henry sighed. "You've been wronged by my family in every possible way. Giving you this is not just about revenge. It's about justice. It's about justice. It's about ensuring that the Collins legacy is in the hands of someone who values it." I was speechless. This was more power and responsibility than I'd ever imagined. Over the next few days, while the family was away, I worked closely with Henry and a lawyer he trusted. Transferring assets of this magnitude was complex, but Henry had planned it all. The day of the Collins' return arrived. The mansion looked the same, but there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. I waited in the drawing room, the deed now legally in my name, hidden away in a drawer. The family walked in, their laughter echoing through the hallways. But as they entered the drawing room, their expressions changed from joy to confusion. "Welcome back," I said, my voice steady. "I hope you had a good trip." Jack's mother sneered. "What are you doing here, Sophia? Waiting to greet us like a good little daughter-in-law?" Before I could reply, Henry spoke up, his voice commanding the room's attention. "She's here because this is her home now." The family stared in shock. Jack stepped forward. "Grandfather, what are you talking about?" Henry handed him the envelope. "Read it." As Jack read, his face turned pale. "This can't be real." Lisa snatched the envelope, her eyes scanning the documents. "How could you do this?" she shrieked at Henry. Henry looked at them with a mixture of pity and disdain. "You've brought this on yourselves." Amid the chaos, I stepped forward. "From now on, things are going to change. And as for our so-called family vacation loan," I paused, letting the weight of the words sink in. "You'll be paying it back, every single penny." The Collins family's reign had come to an end. In a house that once echoed with their jeers and taunts, the tables had finally turned. The days following the revelation were tumultuous. The Collins family, once the puppeteers of the mansion's fate, found themselves in uncharted territory. Their disdain for me had shifted to desperation, but the power dynamics had irrevocably changed. Jack's mother, always the matriarch, now paced the hallways, her usual composure replaced with frustration. "We need to challenge this," she exclaimed one evening, her voice echoing through the grand foyer. "There must be a legal loophole. We can't let her take everything." Jack, on the other hand, seemed torn. One evening, as I was organizing documents in the library, he entered, a mix of anger and regret on his face. "Sophia," he began, his voice trembling, "how did we get here?" I looked up, meeting his gaze. "You tell me, Jack, was it when your family took out a loan in my name? Or perhaps when you decided to stay silent while they tormented me?" He took a deep breath, searching for words. "But you allowed it," I retorted, the pain of betrayal evident in my voice. "Every time you chose their side, you abandoned me." The air grew thick with tension as the weight of our choices and their consequences settled around us. The following weeks were a blur of legal meetings and confrontations. With the deed to the mansion and the properties securely in my name, the Collins family's attempts to reclaim their lost empire were futile. Yet they were relentless. Amidst this, another shock awaited them. The $1,200,000 loan they'd so carelessly taken out under my name had to be addressed. The bank, once notified of the fraud, turned to the culprits for repayment. The family's finances were dissected in court. Their extravagant lifestyles and reckless spending were laid bare for all to see. Assets were liquidated and properties sold off. The debt, which they'd hoped would fund lavish vacations and opulent parties, now became their undoing. As the legal battles raged on, Henry became my rock. He stood by me, guiding me through the complexities of the proceedings. "You're doing the right thing," he'd often whisper, his hand patting mine reassuringly. The final verdict was a spectacle. The courtroom was filled with media, curious onlookers, and friends and foes alike. As the judge delivered the ruling, the Collins family looked defeated. They were ordered to repay the debt in full, lose their claims on the mansion, and were slapped with hefty legal fees. Outside the courthouse, microphones and cameras were thrust in my direction, but it was Henry's words that resonated the most. Today, justice was served, not out of revenge, but out of a need to right the wrongs. The Collins family's fall from grace was the talk of the town. The price of their betrayal was high both financially and reputationally. The mansion, once a symbol of their power, now stood as a testament to their downfall. And as for me, with the support of Henry and the lessons learned from the ordeal, I started a new chapter, building a legacy rooted in respect, integrity, and justice.